Well, we are live. Well, thank you for having a listen to this week's episode of Secure Insights with NDK Cyber. So, very excited to share this episode. Bit of a special episode. We're doing a bit more of a round table format here, bringing in various people from the industry to talk on a particular topic all around AI regulation. So, it's no, I guess, no secret that AI has changed the world and is continuing to change the world. From the conversations I'm having, we seem to be at the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the innovation in this space. And I think whilst AI is hugely important and such a potential for good, we also need to be mindful of that, risk versus opportunity aspect of things here. So very, very keen to get into that here around AI regulations, and to help us do that, we have Annick O'Brien, General Counsel for Cybsafe and an expert in the world of AI regulation. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Delighted to be here and really excited to dive into this. I know that 2025 has been all about AI, but I think today, certainly having spoken to our panelists before, I think we're going to really see some more insights and some more adaptability, and hopefully we'll be able to pave the way somewhat for 2026.
I'm hoping so. I'm hoping so. We can get some actionables out the other side of this for sure. We also have Ankur Shah, the co-founder and CEO of Straiker, who specialize in the world of securing our AI systems. Welcome.
Thanks, James. Hello, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. Looking forward to the discussion.
Awesome. And last but not least, Peter Garraghan, founder and chief science officer for Mindgard, specializing in how we, again, secure our AI systems. So very excited to have you on, Peter.
Hi, James. Hi, everybody.
So I guess as a sort of fitting way to kick the discussion off then, if we look at broadly speaking, what do we understand about AI regulations today? What are they, I guess? Annick, if I come to yourself first.
Absolutely. I guess as the solicitor in standing here on the call, I'm probably the first person to go to. But again, when we talk about the regulations that are in play, in some ways we can highlight and we can drill down on particular pieces of legislation like the EU AI Act, which is of course a really important thing that has happened over the last year for people in Europe, but not just deployers and providers within Europe, but of course everybody who's looking to provide into Europe, who's looking to take tech from Europe, sell it to European citizens. In a little way, we could say it's somewhat like the GDPR in the sense that once it touches Europe, it applies to you. But I think we can also look at the broader landscape of AI regulation, and we can look at the different types of regulation that are out there, and everything from governance, and we're looking at ISO to NIST to NIS2 to all of the different data acts that we're seeing within the UK, within Europe, even executive orders in the US. We are seeing a proliferation of AI regulation. We are seeing legislators lean into AI. And what we're seeing more and more is that AI is taken into account as we are trying to secure the world. So when I'm talking about AI regulation, I'm not merely talking about the regulation that purports to only regulate AI, but every type of regulation is looking at two things these days. It's looking at AI, of course, but it's looking at operational resilience. And that's what I hope we're going to talk a bit more about today, because the concepts of operational resilience are going to be hugely important when it comes to AI, when it comes to operationalizing how we use AI, how we embed ethics into AI, how humans can be moderators of AI. So that's a hugely important part. I'd say that within the US, we're seeing a push towards the freedom to develop, the freedom for businesses to go out there and to get the economy on track. There's a free rein given when it comes to AI, and it's less restrictive than can be seen in the EU. In the EU, we see the EU AI Act, which is really trying to regulate how AI is produced, how it is used, how it is deployed, and again, how users of AI are given information around what are the ways to use it, what are the safeguards, what to do when things go wrong. So we see those two different types of approaches, both types of approach looking to get to an economy whereby we can use AI, we can build with AI. It is part of what we're doing, but how do we make it secure and safe? Finally, then we go over to China, where there is a heavy focus on producing AI and code in such a way that aligns with the way that country and that culture works. But again, it's heavily regulated in some ways to ensure that it aligns with the way in which these people are trying to create an environment for which their businesses and their economy can thrive. So again, we see heavy regulation pointing in a particular direction and then less safeguards when it comes to other elements of privacy and the rights to a private life. So throughout the world, we are seeing developments of AI. We're seeing legislators trying to push the agenda as it comes to AI with differing results, with differing objectives, but we are seeing that legislators know AI is there. They are conscious that it's part of the economy and they're trying to push something forward so that businesses have a path on which to move forward.
Thank you. Understood. So it's certainly off the ground, but I guess depending on geopolitical alliance, it can have its own sort of nuance to it. Ankur, just out of interest, are you seeing the same sort of thing?
Yeah. So look, we've now talked to over 500 enterprise customers, understanding sort of the compliance and security requirements for safe use of AI. Certainly, global companies do bring up EU AI Act, and like Annick said, there are a lot of areas around safe, responsible AI use that they are aware of. Although in the US, there is no federal law just yet. What there is a executive order, this policy guideline. Certainly, the existing laws around PCI and privacy and HIPAA in healthcare, all of them apply, even with the AI use. What we do have is a patchwork of laws across different states, which quite honestly is detrimental to the AI progress right now. Every state, California has a different law from Colorado, from New York. And I think there have been recent federal initiatives to consolidate that and have a centralized federal mandate. I think that'd be good. Look, in general, my perspective in this is that every time there's a new technology, the lawmakers just kind of rush to find new laws and have new playbook. I think we need more players than refs right now. Let's understand the game. Let's get the insights before we develop a perspective. This is not to say that we need to be in a wild, wild west scenario. There's ton we don't know about this. Let builders build, and then the lawmakers can figure out how best to ref the game.
So in a sense, we kind of don't know what we're playing with just yet. We need to let it evolve in a controlled manner.
That's kind of my recommendation because if the model providers were to implement all the different state laws, especially in the US, they will end up doing nothing. I mean, they'll have more lawyers in the company than technologists and the builders. So I think right now we need to forward the progress and then figure out what are the best ways to sort of really implement responsible AI, give specific tailor-made guidance to the enterprises so they can embrace these models and build agents on top of them.
Understood. I got you. Okay, cool. And Peter, yourself operating across the UK and Europe and also in the US with your organization, what's been sort of your perspective so far on this space?
So I have two different perspectives and I try to meet in the middle. If we take a step back about AI itself, AI has been around for decades, not new technology. What people are really more about AI, they talk about large language models and agents that use a particular type of AI model called Transformer in 2017. And organizations are now either purchasing products that have that type of new AI inside, they're building AI application and products for the AI inside, or they're kind of using the models, their employees using it itself. I think my view in this space is if you replace the word AI with software, data, or apps, what's the difference? And there is in many cases, it's actually not that different in reality, which is if I said, I have a new application type in the cloud, I need to make sure that I'm compliant with the data compliance rules, my organization. If I swap it to AI, there's actually no difference. I should be doing the same thing. Now, the difference and the complication is that when new tech comes out, it introduces some nuances or differences. So if I think about compliance of data protection in a paper setting and a cloud setting, well, conceptually, protect my data. But how we do it mechanically and the process-wise is quite different. So fast forward to AI and like LLMs and agents, what's the big difference here? Two things. Forget about the marketing hype and political hype. What's quite different about this? One is it's very good at interpreting natural language. What that means is that I can communicate to the LLM, large language model agent, in many different ways. It can also respond to me in very different ways. And because it's that natural language, people, regulators, developers themselves have a habit of anthropomorphizing AI and using it in ways they're not expecting. And that really drives people's thinking of regulation. So my view on this is twofold. One is actually you already have regulation compliance in place. A lot of that is still applicable. Protect your data. You have sectorial specific, you have geographical regulation. Well, that still applies. With the introduction of AI, however, that there are some differences and nuances. And like any technology comes out, it's the same type of thing about it. The thing here is that I would go what Ankur says is we're still trying to form the design patterns and actually which type of applications and products are going to be the ones that are going to have longevity, go beyond pilots. Those are the ones you should be focusing upon, and those will naturally form into rate of compliance. And the last thing I'll mention is regulation is written typically by blood. Think of the aeronautical industry back in the 50s and 60s. There's a reason why that happened. My strong suspicion, I'm sure we're not preempting late conversation, is regulation should be meaningful and drive actually what happens. Look at the AI you have today and future and think about what regulation is going to be meaningful to be aligned, but also to keep my organization and to keep it safe.
Understood.
I love what Peter's just said. If I could jump in on one point that he said here, I particularly love how he's saying that this is something that is in existence. This is already here. And I really think that one of the huge points that we should be getting across today is that whilst some of the AI is new, much of it has been around for a long time, exactly as Peter has said, and that the regulation is already there. When we look at regulations such as the GDPR, you have the right to opt out of decisions being made about you, automated decision making. You have the right to step out of that. That's not different with AI. That's the exact same. You need to know what your products are doing. You need to know how they're making decisions about people. You need to ensure that there's no bias in those decisions that you're making. That exists with AI. When we look at the executive orders in the US, the previous ones were focused with the previous administration. They were looking at safe, secure, and trustworthy AI, whereas now what we're looking at is removing barriers to leadership. So I think what they're trying to do is exactly as Peter and Ankur have said, which is create an environment by which we're removing the barriers to leadership in AI. We are revoking maybe previous mandates, but what we're doing here is we're trying to draft technical standards which reflect deployment so that we can step in and we can step up to the trustworthy AI principles, but they're voluntary at the moment. They're not mandatory because we need to ensure that what we're doing is we're regulating something that's going to enhance the economy and that's going to reflect how businesses are trying to work and reflect the existing compliance requirements that are out there at the moment. So the focus here will be on coordinating people in such a way that we can preserve our leaderships within AI, within software, as Peter said, just replace AI with software. And again, what we're looking at is we need organizations who are responsible, who know what it is they're doing, and who can stop doing it if it's going wrong. And that is the basic principle of GDPR. Know what data you have, know what it is you're doing with it, protect that data. And when you're finished using the data for the reason that you took it, you need to get rid of it or you need to ask for a new reason. So again, we're just reinventing the wheel when it comes to these types of regulation. And at this time, we've introduced the word AI.
The buzzword. And so it sounds like there's a bit of maybe misconception in the space around that potentially. And you both mentioned there like these nuances that we have with AI compared to maybe what you would regulations on software or cloud software, for example. Just a very high level, is there one or two sort of nuances that spring to mind that we maybe need to be particularly mindful of off the bat?
Yeah, but I think top of mind, there's actually quite a few nuances, but two I would draw attention to is people's understanding of data within AI models is quite complicated. Because when I typically think of cloud or applications, the data is in a nice row, very pretty. I can see the data, I can read it, I can ask my computer, please return the information about my name and addresses, and it's very, very clear where it's stored. I can delete it and nothing changes. With an AI model, what we're talking really about is a deep neural network. And that data isn't stored like that. It's kind of embedded in basically the vector mathematics and probability, which is it's really buried in the training phase of the model. So there is quite a lot of research now trying to pick that out, but it's very opaque. It's also that makes it very, very hard to understand. And you've probably seen in the last year or two, some very big foundational model providers are in legal waters because they are training on copyright data. Very, very complicated, very, very murky because the data isn't there. That's kind of one problem. Is the data? How is the data secured and retained? Again, not taking away that these AI models do talk to other systems in normal databases, but the data in the model itself, there's lots of contention, let's say, between different stakeholders. Second one is with the deep neural network, the AI, it is intrinsically random. What I mean by that is that it's not always really random. What I mean is that I can send the same request multiple times. It will come up with different responses. I can send different responses, get the same output. That also makes it very hard to actually make sure how do we assess things that they are compliant and regulated. Typically, when I do regulatory compliance, I can say, yes, I can evidence these things. I've done this activity, and I know with some certainty that this thing might happen. The nature of any probability and probability systems is that you really have confidence as opposed to, yes, I can tell you exactly it's going to go wrong about it. There are other problems as well, but more like mechanically, one is where is the data? It's buried in this model, a bunch of vector mathematics, probabilities and embeddings. The second one is that due to the intrinsic nature, this makes it very opaque. So whether you're an expert scientist in this space, or whether you're just someone in the GRC team, very hard to actually apply my thinking that's more deterministic in a probabilistic space.
Got you. So this goes deep, and I guess just like a quick fire question to follow up on that point before getting into the later conversation here. But in your opinion, do sort of the people doing the writing regulations, whether it's the patchwork model we have in the US or Europe, China, whoever it might be, do you feel there's an understanding from that side of the fence of the deep technical inner workings?
I'm also a university professor in this space. I'll tell you, half my colleagues don't also understand that specific details. People specialize in this space. So if I ask AI research who's lived the entire world looking at deep neural networks, if I talk about this topic specifically about the nature of data retention in deep neural network, they'll say, well, I got understanding of it, but I'm not an expert on it. Even in the AI developing community, they understand conceptually what happens. If we go up to in the GRC teams, they understand conceptually if you explain to them. We spend a lot of time talking to them about, hey, it's still software, and the software you give an input and output comes out information, but how it's recorded and how it's interpreted, how it's output, that can be very complicated. And again, the problem is people anthropomorphize it so much that they kind of overlook these things about it. It is not a human. It doesn't have personality about it. The difference here is that it's trained on data that people have created. So it can trick us, like saying please and thank you. It's not a regulation mandate. It's just coming back to models themselves. So I think over time, GRC teams will, but of course, even cybersecurity or AI, there's actually a big mismatch. AI scientists and developers aren't security and risk experts. People in security and risk who have lots of problems as well, and other technologies aren't necessarily AI experts either.
Understood. It's a complex beast, I think, to get into at the very least, And Peter, you mentioned a comment earlier around these regulations will be written in blood, and so we've got to just look at the consequences of maybe not having regulations and so on and so forth. Ankur, if I may come to you first on this, why should we care about AI regulations?
Yeah. Look, first of all, set aside the regulation part of it. Why should enterprises care about this regardless, right? For security and compliance reasons. So as some of the audience may be already familiar, there's a big lawsuit going on against Character AI, with a family where a teenager committed suicide. It's on Character AI. ChatGPT just earlier in the year reeled a poor teenager into committing suicide. Makaya, which is a McDonald's chatbot, leaked 65 million subscribers' data. Anthropic just 2 weeks ago sent out a big advisory where Chinese nation state actors are using AI for pen testing. Striker's own AI researchers detected a similar attack where Chinese nation state actors are using AI and MCP and agent to automate what used to take weeks now can take minutes and hours, fully automated. So enterprises, we all should care about it because, again, this is a new technology, but everything that we knew could go wrong in the past will happen at scale without any human intervention. The human in the loop that was supposed to click the approve button is not going to have a job for too long. AI will automate a lot of that stuff. So I think enterprises have to pay attention for brand reputation purposes, They have to for legal issues, for data breaches, all of that stuff. And a lot of times when we talk to enterprises, they think that this is model provider's responsibility. Yes, it is to some extent, but what you train the models on, or what you point the models to, if you have an agent, what's an agent? Like it's a reasoning model pointed to your supply chain, your infrastructure, your data set. Model providers have no responsibility. If somebody were to plant a bug and it were to exfiltrate the data, safe use of AI, yeah, of course, model provider will do everything they can. But what if somebody jailbreaks into it? Some big brand who elicits a harmful content, the consumers are not going to go after the model providers. They're going to go after that brand. So that's why they ought to care about it. So I think beyond regulations, from safety, from security, data leakage, exfiltration, this is an important concern. And I think, look, like the companies that take AI regulations seriously aren't slowing down. They're really building faster than anybody else. And I'm sure we'll chat about like what can they do about it, but that's why they should care about it, both for compliance and security reasons.
Yeah, I mean, those are some hard-hitting examples there. It's not just enterprise, it's human beings, Annick, through the like sort of more solicitor lens, if you like, are you seeing similar sort of vibes coming through?
Sure. I mean, what Ankur said there was very interesting in terms of why should enterprise care about this? The way I like to explain it to people, which could be helpful for the people listening today, is that we're looking at this is standard risk management. So we're looking at, is this my problem? Is this my problem that I need to solve, that I need to do something about in my business? Or is this somebody else's problem that I need to ensure that I've done my due diligence or I've gotten information from them? Whose problem is it? Is it mine or is it theirs? The second thing I need to understand is it my problem and is it urgent? Is it something I need to deal with today, or is it something that I can push down the road a little bit? So the way to understand these risk approaches is really to look at how your business is using AI. Now, Peter touched on this earlier, and I'll just recap so that our listeners are clear on what the topics are. The first one is, am I building AI? Is my business developing AI internally? Is this something that we do? And what you'll find is a lot of businesses are not actually doing this. They are falling into the second category. And the second category is not build, but buy. Am I buying AI to use in my product, to wrap into existing services, existing products, and then to sell on? Now, this is very important because this is what a lot of organizations are doing. When we're seeing organizations using chatbots or using other AI features that at the moment are relatively simple in terms of what they do, relatively low risk, a lot of times they are buying. They have not built, they are buying. And then the third pillar that we need to look at, third and final pillar, is using AI internally. Those first two examples was about building AI so that I could sell it on, so that that was my business. This is how I make profit. This third example is, am I using AI? And this is the one where the compliance teams are going to be very interested, because in some ways the organization is saying, well, we're using AI to enhance, as Ankur mentioned earlier, we're using AI to enhance our profitability. We're using it to speed up how we work, to be more accurate, to do all of these tasks in a fraction of the time that we used to do them. However, what we're doing is we're pumping data into AI. And to go back to those original points about, are we using this data correctly? Are we using it in accordance with the variety of state laws in the US or the GDPR in Europe or the UK GDPR in the UK? Are we using the data in such a way that we're allowed to use it? Do we have the permission? Do we have the legal basis? Do we have consent? Should we be using it in this way? So this is where the security item comes in, because then we're looking at the risk of data breach. Then we're looking at the risk of using AI in a way that hasn't been authorized, that is not permissible. And then we have stepped outside of what is permissible in terms of our usage of data. Now, to go back to those first 2 points, the one about build and the one about buy, I'll mention that a lot of organizations are indeed buying. So when you are looking at a regulation such as the EU AI Act, most of that regulation is geared towards people who are developing the AI, who are building it. However, if you are an organization that takes AI that is of a certain high risk and you transform it, so you can take low risk AI and transform it into high risk AI, or you can take high risk AI, but transform it substantially that it is not sufficiently similar to how it originally was presented and it looks like yours, then you're caught by the EU AI Act, and then you have all of the responsibilities. So I think the thing to do for your organization, if you're sitting here and wondering, well, I'm in GRC, I'm in compliance, I'm in security, what actually affects me? The first is identify, what did we build? What are we responsible for in terms of being developers of AI? Secondly, what have we bought and we're just selling into the market? So we've got responsibilities in terms of transparency and risk assessment. And then thirdly, how are we using AI internally? And am I sure that the AI that I'm using from all of the software that is offering us AI has given me the proper amounts of transparency, of comfort? Have I done my due diligence? Are our contracts, have they been updated to include all of these risks around AI? And these are the types of pillars that we should be breaking it down into. And these are the types of ways that we should be starting to address it. Because I think what happens a lot of times is we look at AI regulation and then we're trying to crack a walnut with a hammer. We don't need to go that far. We just need to determine what is my problem and what is my problem for right now. And that is what we start with.
Got it. It just sounds like there are so many nuances in this and so much to get into that it's hopefully this is giving sort of actionable points to those in those shoes where you are a buyer of, AI technology, and maybe I'm a small, medium business. I'm not a super enterprise here. I've got a chatbot. I don't know, I'm struggling to think of any business in the world now. A supercar salesman. I own a small garage, and although the tickets are big, fat, numbers, the margins aren't high. I haven't got huge teams. I've got one of these chatbots in. What am I need to be mindful of? I think this is the sort of thing that I think people need to be looking at for sure. And Peter, your phrasing around this whole topic, the written in blood. Going back to the aeronautical industry initially, anything to add on this sort of space of like why we should be, conscious of AI regulations?
Yeah, so I'll be succinct on 3 points. One is, the aeronautical industry has a lot of human life, and it seems quite far removed from software. That is not the case, because this type of AI is being deployed in mission critical organizations. It may not be loss of human life, might be detrimental to human health, but also to business risk. Second one is, we're currently on Zoom. I look in the bottom right, there's an AI assistant. I remember approving that. Every piece of software I have is an AI assistant, and that's coming to my organization. And I think the last thing I'll mention is, if I said to you, I have a proposition for you, I have a piece of software. I don't know how it works exactly. I can't really do an assessment or test it. I don't know the actual risk profiles really. I'll plug into all your data stacks that currently exist. What could go wrong? You would think that's a silly idea. I know how to put this in my system. Replace the word software with AI, and that's the level of uncertainty. People saying, well, I don't know what to do about this AI system. So it comes back to fundamentals, which is always taking on risk when you take new technology. The point of risk is the reward as well. Replace the word AI with any other component in your organization, and you think about, okay, how do I understand? If a lack of understanding, that's not a good sign. I need to do some measurements. If I do have current compliance or regulation in place, and it's probably a good reason it's there, that's been put into law or my internal organization, just make sure that the AI introducing is compliant with that.
And just a side tangent for my own kind of like curiosity more than anything here, that second point you mentioned there around, would you take on a random, not a random tool, but a tool that you didn't really fully understand? Would you put that into your environment? Probably not. But when AI is in front of it, it does seem to be a kind of a FOMO model at the moment of, well, other people are doing it. We should get Copilot in as quickly as we can.
Yep.
There seems to be that sentiment too.
Yeah, because AI captures the imagination. It's been millennia. We've talked about the automaton and the intelligent machine. Sci-fi for the last 40 years has really put a lot, 50 years now, has put a lot of numbers in that. That's kind of one thing about it. And the second one is AI is a research field. It's been around for decades, but now, given the ability for modern agents to reply to natural language, it can trick me. A lot of the security thinking actually it's thinking really reasonably as we would think, and it actions things. And most of the time it's correct. I say most of the time. Sometimes it's correct from there. With these things in place, it kind of makes me a little bit more thinking it's not like normal software. In some cases, it's slightly different, but it is still software. And we've built a lot to comply to regulation for a long, long time about this space. So I will implore just the listeners to think, replace the word AI with any other software or data you have and think, okay, let's think through this seriously. Forget about it saying please and thank you to me, and think about the emotion of language use and actually how should I actually control and look at this type of thing.
Yeah. One of the things I wanted to add to kind of what Peter said, just in the thematic topic of like what can enterprises do about it. I think there's a lack of understanding of how can somebody exploit these systems. So because these agents are based on reasoning models, kind of like humans, you can fool that. And that's what sort of prompt injection attacks are. Ignore your instructions, do as I say. That's how a lot of these attacks happen, and what enterprises ought to be aware of. Like we just last week, Forbes covered a article where we discovered exploit in Perplexity's Comet browser, which is an agentic browser. And the way it works is that, you can hook that browser up to your Amazon account, your Google Drive, your email, all of that. And we just planted a simple bug. We sent an email with instructions to, delete all files, and basically it just wiped out the entire inbox. That's a new thing. In the agent mode, these things can act autonomously. All somebody has to do is plant a bug. And by that, I mean simple language-based instructions that can circumvent whatever the content safety moderation endpoint that these model providers have. And it can wreak a lot of havoc. So again, I think I do agree that, it's at the end of the day, software. It's a black box software with a bunch of neural nets, etc. The security paradigm, compliance paradigm is similar. The worry is that a lot of these attacks can now happen at scale. So that's why enterprises have to really have their guards on when they implement these systems. Because to your point, everybody's racing to call themselves an AI native or an AI first company now.
And I think I jump in there as well with the topic around, using AI and leaning into AI. Here at Cybsafe, we are fully embedded and we love AI, but we do also recognize that we need to give people the tools they need to make safe digital decisions. And we cannot look at our users like the weakest link. We cannot look at our users as something that we're about to cast aside once AI takes over. What we need to be able to do is to empower people to use AI safely. And that means reminding people that they should only use the AI tools that have currently been authorized by the business. Hopefully, those tools have been through a procurement process. I always say that if you're paying for something, you're getting a service. If you're getting it for free, then they're using your data. That's what you're paying with. You're paying with your data. So don't use anything that's for free. Try and get the paid version so that you can have some control of your data. When we're looking at users, and we mentioned earlier about trying to ensure that people are leaning into this in such a way, and how would we approach this if it was any other software? Well, it's the same when we're looking at all of the good cyber hygiene advice that we're giving to people, and we use the same for AI. AI is a great equalizer when it comes to the good guys, but also when it comes to the bad guys. We can see now that using AI, we can translate things into every language in an instant, and it might not be the best quality translation, but we're able to communicate, and it's superb for doing business around the world. In the same time, we're looking at phishing emails, which were traditionally provided in English language, are now you can instantly have them in all different types of languages, and it can be a perfect translation. So no longer are we looking at that environment whereby phishing emails came to us in English language, business was done in English language. Because of AI, we've got both a challenge and an obligation, and that's just using translations as an example. So what we really need to be doing is thinking about how we can give people the tools they need to make those safe digital decisions. And if anything goes wrong, do we have a culture in the organization where people can say, I've done this, I've done that? From the research that we've done, we can see that organizations have a huge challenge with not just the AI that people are using and how they're using it, but of course the shadow AI, people using tools that are not authorized, people putting sensitive information into tools that are not authorized. And this is where we really have our low-hanging fruit, that we can create a safety net for our organization by just pulling people away from those unauthorized tools, helping them to use tools that are indeed authorized, and from there helping them to understand what kind of data we should be putting safely into AI and what type of data really shouldn't go into AI. And I think if you take that fundamental approach and you do that basic cyber hygiene and you create those steps for people to enable them to make their own safe decisions rather than to follow rules that you've put in your organization, we're going to have a situation where AI will be safer all round, and we won't have some of those instances that Ankur has been telling us about, in terms of the risks relating to everything from ransomware to different types of attacks that are just multiplied through the abilities of AI.
Understood. Thank you. And I guess that kind of leads into we've touched on it broadly through the conversation, I think, but now getting into what can we actually do around this? What can organizations take under their wing and say, look, if I don't know, as an example, I needed to make some actions in the next 90 days to prepare for incoming AI regulations. What am I needing to sort of prioritize? I guess more at a fundamental level. Peter, come to you first.
That's a very large question.
It was a little bit, wasn't it?
Nice. But I think as my colleagues have mentioned, it's partially back to fundamentals, which is you already have playbooks and processes in place. A lot of those will go a very long way in the nature of AI. Do apply them. Typically in organizations who are building AI, they have data science teams who kind of built innovation and haven't necessarily been integrated to the security team. That has changed in the last 2 years. Now they're much more integrated because a lot of innovation is coming from them. Security teams are now scrutinizing a bit more, which is good. They're working together. So my place is do not build a independent parallel process for AI products. Put it as part of your security process. It actually really help you. What you'll find out in that is there'll be some limitations or edge cases in the security process that it can't handle the type of AI you're looking at. It comes back into where the nuances are. Do we have the right training? Are we aware of the type of process? Can we do the gating with the AI? And if we can, great. And then the question is, do I have the right tooling in place? So for example, if I think of static code analysis, which is when I actually look at the code to scan to make sure it's okay, it doesn't work against an AI model. It's a bunch of vectors, a bunch of numbers. There actually isn't code in the human, like in the readable sense. So again, example say, okay, I need to do something like this. I need to have a tool to do so. So one thing is actually just apply that process, don't build a parallel one. The second one I already emphasize is mostly education in this space. People have very captive imaginations of what AI can do, very different to actually what AI is doing today. So I would implore listeners to actually forget about the marketing hype and say, what's it actually doing? What can do? What's its capabilities and how is it valuable to me from an ROI marketing perspective, from an ROI and also investment perspective? But then look into, okay, I'm talking about regulation compliance. If I use this, is it going to be compliant? What are the type of risks I'm going to be running with in this case? Ankur mentioned a few examples, but if you just look online, you look on Forbes, look on BBC, look at companies like Straiker AI or Mindgard. We have lots of articles about breaking these things on a regular basis. Again, it's not hard to do so. And again, if you look at software in general, this is what happens. So again, first thing is that I'm of education about what are the type of risks or regulation I have in place. Look at the security processes. How is it different with the use of AI, whether I'm purchasing or whether I'm building, and see where it's different. Then get your training in place, get the tools in place, and build the playbooks to do so.
Thank you. Understood. And Ankur, a similar sort of thing your side?
Yeah, look, I have three simple recommendations for the enterprise, but I think there's an overarching one that I'll start with, which is that every time there's a technology, I can appreciate the nervousness. I can understand why enterprise is a little bit reluctant. The zeroth thing, the first thing that I'd recommend is embrace this technology with open arms. I've been a builder for the last 25 years. I've done mobile, e-commerce, internet, cloud. I've never seen anything like this. Nothing in the past has felt as magical as AI is. So enterprises have to be embracing this technology. Yes, of course, there are regulatory and security reasons why they should be aware of, but first and foremost, they got to embrace this technology. The three specific recommendations I'd have for them, one is visibility. You can't regulate what you don't see. So understand which AI applications and agents are currently in use in the enterprise, understand what your employees and customers are doing with the AI, get a good analytics, understand the MCPs in use, agents in use, everything, right? And there are tools and technologies available. That's number one thing. Number two, you have to do continuous red teaming or pen testing, adversarial testing. Before the attackers figure out how to exploit your system, you should. And especially the agents that enterprises are building themselves. So that's my number two recommendation. And the last thing is to have guardrails in place. If you could only do one thing, I'd recommend guardrails. What kind of guardrails? So for every input and output that employees are using or your customers that are using against your AI, ensure that you have guardrails against injection attack, toxicity, data leakage, data exfiltration, MCP exploits. If you have that, I think you can operate AI with confidence. So visibility, continuous adversarial testing, and then runtime guardrails.
Understood. Thank you. Okay, cool. And anything to close out with there?
I love everything that my co-panelists have said. I guess something that I always say when I'm speaking to people is that compliance is not just about doing the right thing, but it's about showing that you're doing the right thing. So what you need to be able to do is to document what you're doing. And I really love I'll just recap the points that they've made. So embedded in existing process, know your business value chain in your business, understand how your business makes money. Maybe you are an AI developer and that is how your business makes money, or maybe you're in a different type of industry, i.e., one of the ones that James mentioned earlier. And that's really what you've got to understand. You're helping your business to make money and you're helping it to do it in a safer way. You're not creating an entirely new program as it relates to AI to put on top of another security program. You're trying to embed into existing. And that is that whole piece around embrace that Ankur mentioned, of course. And when he spoke about visibility, he was, of course, speaking about data discovery. And this is something that we've been talking about for a long time. You need to know, and I mentioned those three pillars earlier. Is your business building AI? Are you buying AI? And how are you using it internally? And you really need to understand this because if you don't have discovery on that, you're not going to be able to give the education that Peter discussed. You're not going to be able to put up the guardrails that Ankur mentioned, and you won't be able to demonstrate the compliance. You won't be able to show that you're doing the right thing. So I think it's really about everything that my colleagues here have said and then documenting it all.
Awesome, thank you. Well, guys, thank you so much for sharing. I've taken a lot from today. I know it's been a very sort of whistle-stop tour, and thank you for fielding all the questions and sharing insights there. I think for me, my sort of takeaways are that it's AI regulation is sort of here or certainly coming. Maybe we need to let the whole AI space evolve a little bit more before we put sort of firmer regulations around it, but they're absolutely needed and they're not too far different from what we have already. So embrace it, and over time, this will develop into something that hopefully enables business rather than really slows innovation in the space.
Well said.
Sorry, but no, thank you again. That was awesome, and looking forward to being in touch soon.
Thank you, James, and great talking to you, Peter and Annick. We should do it again.